Hi, my name is Eric, and I'm going to help with managing this session today. We want to welcome to the Leadership Summit this year. We're really glad you're here, and we're excited to have you join this session today. During this session, you're welcome to put your questions in the chat box, and at the end, the presenters will answer them. I'll be reading those questions out. At the conclusion of the session and during your downtime between any of the Leadership Summit sessions, you're invited to visit the Leadership Summit Lounge, where you can relax by taking part in meditative exercises or learn more about such DBSA resources as our wellness toolbox, our support groups, parents and caregivers community, the advocacy work, and the peer specialist program, and many other toolkits. We want to wish you a really productive and enjoyable Leadership Summit. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Douglas.
Welcome, everybody. Happy, I have to think, Monday, September 27th in the afternoon, autumn day here in the Midwest. I hope everyone has been enjoying the summit as much as I have today. It just kind of entered the virtual auditorium and waiting room, and away we went. So I hope everyone's enjoying their time. So myself and my colleagues, Eric is also a colleague, but he's our Zoom jockey today. But Lisa and Andrew and I are super happy to welcome you to this session on the first day of our second Leadership Summit, much bigger than last year. So thank you for being here. The focus of our session today is really pretty straightforward. Our advocacy department is giving a lot of presentations, so we wanted to kind of give you an overview of how we approach that. So you can maybe be enticed to come back for more. Thursday and Friday. So we have sessions, today's our overview. We have sessions tomorrow, Tuesday, and then the plenary sessions Wednesday, and then more advocacy sessions on Thursday and Friday. So each day has a specific theme. Tuesday, which is tomorrow, yes, I have to remind myself of that too, is what is peer support and its value. Wednesday, there's a lot of plenary sessions that we hope you join. Thursday, the advocacy theme is amplifying the peer voice. And then finally, on Friday, the theme is self-advocacy. So before we dive just a little bit more deeply into these themes, we're going to do a review of our engagement software called Slido.
Yes, thank you, Douglas. So for those of you who were here in the previous session, you should be able to join the Slido again. You can, if you know how to use a QR code, you can scan the one that's up on your screen here. And when I do move on from this slide, this QR code will appear on each of the slides where we have the questions. If you're more comfortable using a computer, using your computer keyboard, because you will have the opportunity to type in some short answers, then you can also go to slido.com. And if you choose, and that's SLIDO.com. If you choose to go there, then you'll want to enter advocacy track, all one word. It doesn't matter what you capitalize. It's not case sensitive. Into the large blue box at the top of the screen. Here's a picture of what your screen will look like. And at the top of the screen where it says joining as a participant, and that's where you want to enter advocacy track right behind, right next to that hashtag symbol. And whether you scan the QR code or you go to slido.com, after you enter advocacy track, the next thing that you're going to see is a screen that looks like this. And actually, if you are still in Slido from the previous session, on the top of your screen, depending on the device you're using, it might be on the top left or the top right, you would see remaining that Monday, 2 p.m., Andrew, Eric. If you click on that, then you'll get a drop down that will allow you to select from this list. So whether you're joining for the first time or whether you were in our previous session and now you want to join this session, you want to bring up this list and you want to select today, Monday, 3 p.m., which is what time it is here in Chicago, where we're presenting from. And again, my name is Andrew, and I'm presenting with my colleagues Douglas and Lisa. And that is color coded blue on this list, and it's the second one from the top. And so I encourage everybody to join the Slido, whether that be on a different device on your phone, or if you're doing that from your computer, that'll give you the opportunity to respond to some questions we have in real time, and we can see everybody's responses, and then that can foster some of our discussion. And so again, I'm Andrew. I'm right in the center of this slide. Douglas, who is just speaking, is to the left of this slide, and that's Lisa over on the right. And we also want to introduce you to a couple of other members of our advocacy team. We had some introduction again in our last presentation, but we'll go through that for those who are just joining us for the first time, and I will hand it back to Douglas.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, we have a lot of the advocacy team here right now. Lisa, Andrew, Eric, our Zoom jockey, and I'm going to call out Meg, who's a part of our team for a year. So hi, Meg. That's my goofy face right there. My name is Douglas Hulst, and I am DBSA's Peer Specialist Workforce Development Program Manager. And yes, I still screw up my title, and I have to think about it in those 3 chunks in order to say it the right way. My primary responsibilities here at DBSA are related to elevating the peer support specialist workforce. What that means is my role is elevating the peer specialist workforce through training and from time to time being part of projects which continue to prove that peer support specialists are a dynamic and needed part of volunteer, paraprofessional, and professional roles in the mental health arena. I like to share with individuals what brings me here. Why am I here? Why do I have credibility? So there's 2 big areas. There's 3 big areas, but 2 big areas in my wellness story that I like to share with individuals. The first was I confronted generalized anxiety disorder from a major depressive episode in my early 20s. And the second big reason which brought me to DBSA was overcoming dependency upon the substance of alcohol in my early 40s. All right, so Tuesday, which is tomorrow, I keep thinking it's today, that is when we are focusing on our theme of the value of peer support. Next slide, Andrew. Thank you. So first, we have Walking the Road to Wellness, how peer support models valuable steps in the lived experience. Will be our first session at 3 p.m. Chicago Central Time. Next slide. And that is with our Vice President of Advocacy, another part of our team, and our team leader, Phyllis Foxworth. She will be addressing the research that quantifies the value of peer support and how advocates can use this information to call for broader adoption of peer support and peer support services. So once more, Phyllis will be presenting tomorrow at 3 p.m. Chicago Central Time. Next slide. Secondly, we're going to be talking in depth about peer support versus peer support services, which there is a distinction. So Lisa, who's on the call with us right now, my colleague Lisa and I will be sharing about what this all means. What do peer specialists do? What are the distinctions between peer support and peer support services, and how that ultimately lifts us all up? Peer support and the services provided by peer support specialists are changing lives, and I truly believe even saving lives. So we hope you come back to listen to that session tomorrow. That session with Lisa and I is tomorrow, Tuesday, 4 p.m. Chicago Central Time. And then immediately following that session, I will be moderating a panel of clinicians. And we're going to engage with them on how they were first introduced to the world of peer support and peer support specialists. And then we're going to talk to them. We're just going to ask them, when did they start believing in the work and the value of peer support specialists? And it's an opportunity for everyone who comes. If you've ever wondered about what clinicians, some clinicians think about the work of peers and the services provided by peer support specialists, this is your golden opportunity to learn and to ask them questions. So that session is tomorrow, Tuesday, 5 p.m. Chicago Central Time. And now it is back to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Douglas. As I mentioned in the last session, I am the Community Engagement Program Manager. As such, I am responsible for DBSA's state level advocacy. And I'm also responsible for helping peers develop their story, helping peers tell a particular story with their own lived experience. And so how do you use what you've lived through and what your experiences are in order to persuade people, in order to talk to policymakers or other individuals and let them know that you want them to make a change. And so we're going to talk about what DBSA is doing to amplify the peer voice. That is the theme for Thursday, September 30th. As Douglas mentioned, on Wednesday, there will be a plenary session. There will not be any breakout sessions. So for the advocacy track, we will be after tomorrow, resuming on Thursday. And so I just wanted to share with you a little bit around what you'll learn if you come back Thursday to learn what DBSA is doing to amplify the peer voice. But first, I wanted to use our Slido again, another interactive opportunity here, to ask you what words come to mind when you think about amplifying the peer voice. So again, if you didn't get a chance to scan the QR code earlier, it's there on the screen. If you'd like to join at slido.com, you can, and you can enter advocacy track into the big blue box. If you're still in Slido from the previous session, if you go to the Monday 2 p.m. at the top of the list and at the top of your screen and just select Monday at 3 p.m., which is what time it is here in Chicago. And I see we have some response coming in. Nothing about us, without us, very, very important. That it can be vulnerable to amplify your own voice and to speak out and talk about your experience. Same thing with uncertainty. but that amplifying the peer voice does provide connections and an opportunity to encourage each other. So thank you all for responding there. So one of the ways that we amplify the peer voice, and I mentioned this in the previous session, is by providing opportunities to engage in advocacy. And the simplest way is responding to action alerts. We talked about that, but also providing opportunities for you, our advocates, to meet with legislators, whether that be virtually in this time of the pandemic, or sitting down with the legislator face to face. But either way, saying, my name is Andrew, and here's how this policy is going to affect me and my life. Some other ways that we engage in advocacy, as I mentioned in the previous session, include DBSA writing letters of support as an organization, giving you the opportunity to respond to those action alerts. And again, some of our key issues are around access to quality mental health care and access to medical products. We don't endorse any particular type of treatment, nor do we endorse treatment at all, but we do fight for access. And then going back to Tuesday's session, which is all about peer support and the role of the peer support specialist, that's one of our key advocacy issues. That's why we've devoted an entire day of our advocacy track to that. That's one of our key advocacy issues, that we work on promoting policies that promote the value of peer support. And then in addition to meeting with legislators, in addition to responding to action alerts, we participate in a lot of coalitions with other organizations, and we encourage you, our advocates, to join coalitions, to participate in mental health boards, to get involved. And again, that was Thursday at 3 p.m. Central Chicago time. Immediately following that at 4 p.m. Central Chicago time, we're going to talk about moving beyond talking to government, because advocacy is so much more than that. When I say policymakers, I don't just mean public policymakers. I don't just mean legislators, and I don't just mean including regulators on that list. And if you don't know what I mean with that distinction, legislators are lawmakers. Those are elected officials, representatives, senators, and so on. And regulators work for federal agencies. So that would be like the Department of Labor, or at the state level, the Department of Insurance. But then we also want to talk about policies that are made by private companies. There's lots of different places where policies affect people living with mood disorders. And not least of those are the developers of those actual treatments. So the companies that are making the treatments, we want to make sure that the peer voice is included from the beginning, that what peers want to get out of treatment is factored in to how these treatments are developed. One of the ways that we do that is through peer councils. And so those are convened. I recruit people. You may have seen some of these communications if you receive our Making Mental Health Matter newsletter or our action alerts. That's primarily where I recruit from. And I will ask, if you have a particular lived experience, here's an opportunity to share your experience. And those take a variety of forms, but often they involve joining a Zoom call and having a discussion about how you would feel about a certain type of communication, or what you want to see, what you want to get, and so that our partners can learn from you directly from the peer. And so we will have an entire session devoted to what goes into a peer council, what do we do with those peer councils, and how that amplifies the peer voice. And then following that, on Thursday at 5 p.m., we'll have another panel discussion led by Phyllis, our Vice President of Advocacy, talking about how those product developers, how anyone who's really in the space, including the government, including regulators at the FDA, can make sure that the peer voice is included in what those treatment outcomes are, and how making sure we answer the question, are we measuring the treatment outcomes that are most important to you, the peer? And so definitely come back to learn more about that. And I will hand it over now to Lisa, who's going to talk about Friday and self-advocacy.
Thanks, Andrew. Hello and welcome, everyone. To echo what Douglas and Andrew have already said, we can't thank you enough for taking time today to join us today and also this week at our second annual virtual leadership summit, and particularly the advocacy track sessions. Again, my name is Lisa Gaduco. I work as coordinator in the advocacy team. My main responsibility is overseeing our peer engagement program, which is basically our peer specialist course training. I am also involved with our advocacy newsletter that Andrew's mentioned a couple of times already. It's called Making Mental Health Matters. I create content and copy for the self-advocacy column. I also provide support for DBSA's work with the Mental Health Liaison Group, which is a coalition of national organizations representing other advocates in the mental health space, dedicated to elevating the national conversation around mental health and substance use by working to advance federal public policies. Next slide, please, Andrew. So we're excited and looking forward to you joining us on Friday, this Friday, October 1st at 1 p.m. Again, that's Chicago Central Standard Time. It'll be our privilege to speak with and hear from you, our advocates, about your thoughts and experience with self-advocacy. We plan for it to be an engaging conversation with you. We have a diverse array of topics and discussions in store for you on the subject of self-advocacy and how self-care can make changes not just within yourself, but with your environment and in relationships with others around you. So this Friday self-advocacy session will be an exciting and comprehensive look and discussion into the recovery movement. This slide is our Slido, and it'll be our first question to you for this afternoon to get our chat started. For now, we'd like to ask you to please go to Slido and share with us what comes to mind when you think about self-advocacy. We'll take a moment right now to get your responses.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts on this. All very powerful, they're little snippets, with our little word bubbles, but self-care plus compassion and actions, vulnerability, being assertive, definitely knowing your rights. It's going to be addressed on Friday. self-care, being courageous, standing up for self, all fall under self-advocacy, self-care. Next slide, please. So to remind us all again why DBSA exists, is to provide hope, help, support, and education to improve the lives of people who have mood disorders. DBSA also envisions wellness for people living with mood disorders. The subject of self-advocacy, self-care, wellness, and ways to achieve these are as much part of the mental health journey as talking, sharing, and informing others about the lived experience. This is the conversation we are incredibly excited to have with you on Friday, to exchange and share information, to hopefully inspire, motivate, and empower one another. So please stay tuned. Stay with us till Friday. Next slide, please. So starting us off on Friday is self-advocacy, know your rights. Where we'll be talking about our rights, and the understanding behind this is in order to effectively self-advocate, we're going to need to know our rights. And this session is designed for you to learn more about what your rights are. And on next slide, you've met Eric Scharf, our federal advocacy advisor. And Eric will empower us or empower you with information about mental health discrimination in the workplace and at home. Eric will also share information about the American Disabilities Act, the Fair Housing Act, and healthcare parity issues. I'll also talk about how to identify your rights under legislation that addresses the workplace, housing, and health insurance. Our next slide, again, if you could share with us what words come to mind when you think about self-care. And again, we'll take a moment here to get your feedback, your valuable feedback. Okay, well, thank you again for sharing your thoughts. Again, appreciated and very much in line with DBSA and our goals and how we practice providing support and education and information. I love the word essential, definitely at the core. Next slide. So first, next up on Friday at 2 p.m., again, Chicago Standard Time, is self-advocacy, self-care. Douglas and I will have a conversation with you about the topic of when you are at your best, you are at your best for all those you care for. We're going to dig deep into the importance of self-care. And this topic fittingly includes Douglas sharing a grounding exercise. So please show up for that. A wellness practice that works for Douglas. And again, the thought behind this is to pause, to slow down our breath, our thoughts, and our bodies, to help to be in the present. And having said this, DBSA, again, to echo what Andrew had said earlier, DBSA doesn't promote one form of wellness practice, therapy, or medication over another. Instead, our intent is to have a conversation with you to explore and break down the concept of self-care and what it means to us individually and collectively, and how we can affect our community. So our next Slido question or polling question and last one for this afternoon is if you can share with us what words come to mind when you think of the concept or word of recovery. Okay. Again, thank you for sharing the thoughts. Oh, definitely. Yes. We'll be covering this. It's a nonlinear process, and definitely what keeps popping up is it's definitely about the journey, not so much about the destination, even though destination is cherry on the cake, right? Definitely unique and different for everyone. The process, journey, growth and learning. Again, definitely in line with DBSA's mission and vision. Next slide. So Andrew, on Friday at 3 o'clock, again, Chicago time, we'll talk about why words matter and the journey to our current language and when it comes to the messaging of mental health. Andrew will provide an overview of the recovery movement and compassionate language. He'll identify the history and the origins of recovery and wellness and how critical thinking can inform how language is used. See, we have a bit more time. Next slide, Andrew. It's we're coming up to, this is the end of their presentation. We definitely have some time to take any questions. So Eric,
Yeah, I don't have any questions at this point. If anyone wishes to put something in the chat box. I do want to compliment Angela on your Zoom picture.
And I want to thank everyone for joining us for this session. Hopefully you saw something here that will entice you to come back, hopefully for the rest of the advocacy track. But if you do decide you want to pick and choose from the advocacy track and from some of the other sessions that are available through the Leadership Summit, hopefully we've given you a good picture of what you'll get when you choose to come back here. We welcome any questions. If there's any like, oh, I don't quite understand what you meant by this day at this time, we would also be happy to provide a little more clarity on that now. And if you also don't feel comfortable typing into the chat, you can feel free to use the hand raise feature on the reactions on the Zoom. And we can unmute you as well if you'd just like to ask your question. We did have it set up so that nobody can unmute themselves just because we have more people in the room and that was easier to control sound.
Maria has asked, thank you to the presenters. Could you talk about the Thursday, whoops, hold on, Thursday session incorporating peer preferred treatments? Say a little bit more about that session.
Yes, absolutely. Like I mentioned, our VP of Advocacy, Vice President Phyllis Foxworth, will be hosting a panel. It will include Dr. Ray DiPaolo, and it will also include Kimberly, who is a peer, talking about her experience. But the three of them will have a discussion and they'll be talking about DBSA's Transforming the Definition of Wellness campaign, which is a 10-year initiative. And it's basically around talking about what does it mean when we say wellness? What do we mean by that? What do individuals with lived experience mean when they say that? And so, as I mentioned, this is a 10-year campaign. We're a little over halfway through that. I believe we're in year 6 at the moment. I might be off by 1 year. But some of the things that includes is a survey that we sent out. And this was early on. This was 2 or 3 years ago now at this point. And that survey was called the Well Beyond Blue Survey. We also, that was also known as the Transforming Wellness Survey. But we asked our constituents, what does wellness mean to you? We actually ended up getting, I believe, over 60,000 responses to that.
6,000.
And I'm sorry?
It was 6,000, I think.
Oh, I misspoke.
Yeah.
But from those responses, that's where we heard things that people talked about. My doctor is only concerned about symptom mitigation and not concerned about what matters most to me. And so that was one of the things that pushed the direction of our initiative. In 2018, we hosted a patient-focused drug development meeting at the FDA. At that time, the metrics that are used to determine whether an antidepressant is working or not had not been changed in over 30 years. And the FDA was considering changing those metrics. So our point was, again, nothing about us without us. That if you're gonna change the measure of whether an antidepressant is working or not, you need to be asking the people who are going to be taking that antidepressant. And so that was an opportunity for DBSA and our peers to demand a seat at that table. And now, as that initiative is continuing, now that we're moving beyond just talking to the FDA, talking to all of our partners, talking to the researchers and the people who are developing these products, letting them know that the end user, that the peer is the voice that's most important, that we want to have our voice heard, that we want to measure what is important to us. One of the other phrases that came out of that PFDD was moving from surviving to thriving. People talked about their experience of underemployment, that that their mood disorder and the symptoms of the mood disorder, the treatment for the mood disorder, interfered with their ability to work at the level that they are actually capable of working at, that they were educated for, but that through stigma and discrimination, and this all ties back in, talking about Eric's session on knowing your rights on Friday, knowing what accommodations are available to you when in the workplace, when you're living with a mood disorder. One of the things that Phyllis and I have talked about around the Transforming Wellness campaign is, you go to your doctor and they give you the PHQ-9 or any number of other tests to measure whether treatment is working. And you get some questions like, how many times in the last 30 days did you feel sad? Well, what if I don't care how many days in the last 30 days I felt sad? What if I felt sad all 30 days, but I care about whether I got up and went to work? I care about whether I was at my kid's soccer game. Any number of other measures. We need to be asking the individual, instead of deciding for the individual, here's what treatment looks like. Here is how we know whether treatment is working or not. And so those are some of the things that you're going to learn if you come back for that session, Thursday, 5 p.m. Central Time.
Let's see. Someone has asked the question, in Pennsylvania, he was trained as a certified peer specialist, but never got his certification. I plan to do so. Question, does other state require states to read? I'm not sure, Carl. I'm gonna actually, if you don't mind, I'm gonna unmute you because I don't quite fully understand your question or your comment. So let me see if we can unmute you, and there you go. Maybe you can ask the question directly.
Oh,
Should be
okay.
unmuted
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
I trained as a certified peer specialist. Like, God, it's been a while now, 5 years. But due to some of the things that were going on at the time, actually it wasn't mental, more environmental stuff. I never got to work for a company or actually get I guess it's continuing ahead. In Pennsylvania, I believe, and I'm not sure because that's what I have to do. I have to first contact the place where I got the certification. Pennsylvania does require a state certification for their certified peer specialists, which I think is good, actually. I think it does give it a little more qualification wise. But I was just curious if other states do that, and what people kind of think about that. I mean, I think it's a good idea. I unfortunately, because of different things, weren't able to do it. But I am going to do everything with you guys and try to get it back, because this has really helped me to encourage me to get back into it. So that's all.
Douglas, you want to answer that?
Sure. Thank you, Carl, for your question. It's a heck of a question. It's a great question. And I think part of the inspiration for the session tomorrow on, what is peer support? What is a trained peer specialist? What is a state certified, state credentialed peer specialist? That your question was the inspiration for that session. In a nutshell, to share with you right now, every state that has a credential is unique and is different. I think there's 48. It's one of the Dakotas in California who currently do not have a state credential. For some, it's 1,000 hour. It's a training and then volunteered or paid work. So 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 hours. I started my journey, and I'll talk about this tomorrow, in the world of peer support in Michigan. But then I held off getting my state credential because things in Michigan were kind of going like this. And I knew I was going to move back to Illinois. So I actually just got my credential a month ago. And so it's fresh in my head. But part of, I think what DBSA needs to do is just to help people understand so there's three buckets, if you will: human to human peer support, trained peer specialist, meaning you took any kind of a training, 1, 2, 3 days, whatever. And then there's state certified credentialed. DBSA values all three are desperately needed. All three are good. You'll get pushback on the people that say, oh, too much training, too many credentials. That's like clinical work. The way DBSA looks at that is we want to give people an opportunity to grow in their professional skills. So we don't think there's anything wrong with that. Our challenge, and I had a colleague put it to me very well recently, is we want to elevate and professionalize the role of the peer support specialist. Our danger is not to over professionalize it, over clinicalize it, over everything it. And I don't have the magic answer to that. I just know that's where my focus has got to be, is lift this thing up, but not too far.
And if I could piggyback off of Douglas's response, one example that I've heard is comparing it to the nursing field, that you can get some education and you can become a CNA, certified nursing assistant. And then from there, you can continue your training and get more credentials, and you can continue your training from there and get even further credentialed. And there was a question that came to me in the chat asking, what does state certified, or what does a state credential mean? Does that mean the state educated you? And Douglas, I'll hand it off to you, but my cursory understanding of it is no, that you do receive some kind of education and training from a private organization, but then that there is some form of test or exam. And like you mentioned, Douglas, there are in many states hours that need to be fulfilled, either volunteer hours or paid working hours. As a frame of reference, when they say 2,000 hours are required, that means 1 year of working full time, whether that's paid or volunteer. So when you factor in, then if you're doing this part-time, then that becomes multiple years. Douglas, anything to add on that response?
That's a great way to think about it, Andrew. You know, as far as I know, every state in the nation has a state mental health component to it, department. And typically underneath that state mental health compartment, there'll be some kind of a certification board. In Illinois, it's called the Illinois Certification Board. Imagine that. And they decide how many credentials they're going to give. So for example, in Illinois, there's peer work focusing on mental health or substance use disorder issues. There's 6 or 8 credentials. The main one being the CRSS, Certified Recovery Support Specialist, which is particular to Illinois, and the one I got, which is the CPRS, Certified Peer Recovery Specialist. And I chose that one because the bulk of my job is about training, and that credential is more transferable to other states, so I was told. So I got that one. I will also get at some point the CRSS. But the confusion comes in that it's nobody's fault. An individual will take a 1, 2, 5 day training, whatever, and say, I'm a certified peer specialist. Well, they have a certificate. But in trying to help the public understand the levels and the layers, as Andrew pointed out with nursing, there's, and I just learned this 3 weeks ago. I had a colleague down south in Illinois teach me peer support, human to human, all it takes. Bucket number 2, trained. You've taken some kind of a training. Bucket number 3, state certified, state credentialed. You've got your credential from the state because you logged the hours and you took an exam. Now, states use different governing boards for their exams. My exam through Illinois was through the ICNRC, which is a global certification board on exams, mainly focused in substance use disorder peer support, but also in mental health and wellness generally. And the IC and the RC, I always screwed up. It's the International Certification and Reciprocity ICR something C. Anyway, if you Google IC and RC, their website will come up.
Eric, do we have any other questions?
We do
right
not have any
at
other
time
questions,
here.
so I think we are at time, so I'll let you wrap it up.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Hopefully we've answered all of your questions. I'm going to place my email address in the chat. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to contact us. And hopefully we will see all of you back here for the advocacy track for the rest of the week. And hopefully we've provided you with a good understanding of what you'll get if you do choose to go to some of the other Leadership Summit tracks, sessions that for the ones in the advocacy track that you'll know, okay, I want to be there on this day at this time, and what you'll learn. Thank you, everyone, and we look forward to seeing all of you this week.